important things, nicer things, to be honest. Cut that story out of the YouTube video. Bottom right of this best of 5 finals, we do have the blue Terran, Liquid Clem. Who is proxying, by the way. Top left, it is the red Protoss, Neeb, who is no longer on Ting. Neeb is looking to eventually fully retire, I suppose, from StarCraft, but there's really no reason to fully retire from a thing that you've practiced for years and you still have a lot of skill at. Especially if you're not actually overwhelmed with schoolwork or regular job or whatever it is that Neeb's gonna get back into. I think he did mention school. So why not just continue playing? So I do imagine that Neeb will get the bonus, the just retired buff that many other Protoss. I did not mean to make it a race thing, that many other players have done, in that they're gonna just be so carefree and, you know, happy to be playing the game and no pressure, that they're actually gonna get better initially, and then over 4 or 5 months probably actually feel the effects of the mechanical losses. So that has not actually happened yet as far as that bonus is gone. Neeb has made it to the finals twice in a row, so I guess in a way that's a bonus. Neeb not usually found in the finals of Open Cups. That last finals, he faced Hero Marine and he got obliterated. He got 0-3'd, and none of the games were particularly pretty. One game was decently close, but the other 2 games were very one-sided. So is Neeb just bad at PvT? Who knows? Is he just bad versus Hero Marine? A lot of people are. Hero Marine oftentimes gets the Open Cup buff. We'll find out if he does better versus Clem. Pentarp, thank you for the Prime sub. So the probe scouts that it's a proxy, right? So Neeb to go for a Cybernetic core first. I think he actually changed his build order. I think he changed his mind. I'm not 100% sure about that, but he might have been going for a Nexus before Cybernetic core and then changed his mind. But regardless, he knows it's on the way. It's most likely a proxy Reaper, and there's not too much else to worry about for as far as what the factory does or if a starport's going to be coming out, because the factory is usually just put at home defensively, and it is, right? So the first worry is actually dealing with this bunker. So shield battery at the natural plus stalker production usually equals eventually cleaning up this bunker. The issue sometimes is where the pylon and shield battery has been placed. On this map, in these locations, it's perfectly fine. The Reapers can't destroy either building. So it'll finish, and the Stalkers will be able to break this. It is how it helps. So if no unit is lost, Neeb will count that as a good day. Helene doesn't even get into the main base and takes so much damage that it really is quite useless for the follow-up. And while Clem is going to continue being a little pest, I'm gonna go for another drop here. Neeb has not done anything wrong. The Stargate as well is a great tool to have. Not that a Twilight Council would have been wrong. I don't really like robo openers, and I'm pretty sure Neeb doesn't either. Neeb, like, I didn't watch a lot of Scarlet's stream yesterday, but I had it on the side when I was playing Age of Empires. And I saw Neeb actually tell her as she was warming up, yeah, never go robo openers or something along those lines. It encourages you to be harassed or something like that. So, and that's not something that Neeb is, he's not, you know, revolutionary. He didn't realize this, and no other Protoss has. That is why robo openers generally aren't considered good. They aren't, they're very dependable, I suppose, as far as keeping you alive, but they just don't open up a lot of opportunity elsewhere for attacking or defending multiple bases, because Colossus be slow. Oh! That backstab probe traitor could have been worse. 4 probes go down, could have been 7. Probe traitor guy was not as big of a dick as he could have been. Now the Oracle comes back home to help out with the miscellaneous units. The Reapers and Hellenes came back in. 6 probes in total go down. Medevac does end up living. That's the thing that Neeb would want to say, you know what, I'm okay with this. 8 probes in total with the early harassment. If he gets the Medevac, I think he'll be okay with it. I don't think he'll get the Medevac though. Yeah, that's too bad. Actually, Oh, missed opportunity. 100% no reason for Neeb to realize this would be a missed opportunity, though. All it takes is one Widow Mine and it just turns sour for him, but he could have. Well, actually, there are 4 or 5 Marines. No, never mind, never mind. No. So Neeb definitely couldn't take that medevac down. Alright. Third Nexus gets up. Neeb has to live with the opening. But the opening, I say, would... I actually say would be better for the Terran. It's a bit of a weird situation when you look at the resources lost, because that really is not the total tale. Usually we'd say the gas is worse to lose, but the more important thing to look at is the probe count. So really, it's quite brutal for a Protoss player. Whether they're going into Stargate or Twilight Council, it's really brutal for them to be thrown off pacing-wise, get that later third Nexus, and to lose out on the probe production early on. Because they need that overwhelming... Well, not overwhelming economy. They need a good economy to afford enough of the mediocre gateway units to combat the pretty good bio units. That's the sum of... Oh my god! Are you serious, Clem? That was unnecessary. That was like unnecessary violence, almost. He fucking popped the stasis trap, but didn't even have his one Marine stuck in it because he picked it up in the medevac after he killed the Oracle. Could you not just let Neeb have one Marine? My god. And Neeb just dies, by the looks of things. Ay. Neeb actually has some decent tools. His Zealot count wasn't too bad, and his Phoenix could have picked up this tank, but the force field didn't actually help Neeb all that much. And he's coming in from... Well, now he's coming in from multiple directions. It's all a bit too far apart. Phoenix is going to be targeted down, so now we're only down to 2 Phoenix. Make that 1 Phoenix. Widow Mines are going to hit the Zealots perfectly. No splash on those Marines, and Clem... He does win this. Not because of the early game, only because of the early game, I should put it that way. Not because only the early game, but his control for this attack was quite good. GG. Girls are more gross than most men. No, I don't think that's true. I don't think men are any grosser either. I think as a species, we're all pretty equally gross. Yeah, what the hell, Clem? What the hell, man? That boy might not be able to flex in real life, but he can absolutely flex in StarCraft 2. He won because of that one Marine. Yeah. Game 2 is going to be on 2,000 atmospheres. Bottom left, Clem. Top right, Neeb. Neeb, perhaps getting some flashbacks to last week where Here Marine kind of did similar things. Pressured him early on, and then through some pretty slick micro and just generally good Terran play, it really snowballed it into an easier game. There wasn't a whole lot of contest in Neeb versus Here Marine. Not large-scale contests, right? Where you're talking about big old armies versus big old armies. A lot of the contests, the most important contests of Neeb versus Terran, with that first game going the way it did versus Clem, is that what can you do against the early game pressure? So the most important contest is how quickly do you clean up the bunker, or how much counter damage you can do with the opening that you chose. And pretty quickly, Neeb does not do enough. He doesn't win any of those kind of mini contests, if you will. And then when it comes to the big contest, the actual engagement, it doesn't look doable. Now, last game, I will still stick with the idea that it was doable if a couple things were a little bit better, but doable in the sense that Neeb lives, but not very well. Still isn't having a very good time. But as it was, the force fields didn't really work out for him, and the coordination of the units didn't work out for him. Nothing also kind of got lucky for him either, like a Widow Mine splashing on top of the bio that sometimes can help the Protoss, obviously didn't happen, so. It still looked very easy for Clem. And now Clem is going to continue bothering Neeb. Engineering Bay block, 9 times out of 10 is going to also be a factory expand from the Terran who does this. So Neeb doesn't really have to scout what is happening to kind of know what is happening. That said, he is not scouting, so hopefully that is true. That he still knows it's a factory follow-up. Now, the best response to this situation for a Protoss player has been proven to be the Stargate response. Again, Stargate's a beautiful thing. It covers a lot of your bases. It's probably the most dependable opener in that it attacks, defends, harasses, and scouts. It does everything. It's like the magic tool thing as seen on TV. But wait, there's more. But it doesn't mean that it's the easiest thing to use. Or that it guarantees that you'll still be ahead. So while the Stargate provides Oracles or Phoenix to take care of a possible Hellion follow-up, which is a very popular follow-up to the Engineering Bay block, and the third Nexus, third base being the second Nexus, doesn't guarantee that you handle it very well. Still a lot to be said about the execution. And this little addition here from Clem, this getting a bunker up at the third base, is just a little bit extra that might actually throw off Neeb's defense. Because guaranteed, Neeb has practiced this defense before. He's had to deal with this, especially considering there was a very popular meta at some point a year ago or whatever, where this was the thing to do for Terran players. But Neeb is so far already failing, actually. No shield battery in the main means that these probes are super vulnerable. The Oracle will pop out and save some of the probes, as actually the Hellions are not being microed, because Clem accidentally let that Adept in, but it's still too bad. GG. Alright then. Very similar to last week. Shout out the Cyril flexing photo at IM. Jade the Ninja, thank you for 37 months. What am I gonna make for dinner? Series seems like I might be going pretty fast. For lunch, I could not decide what I wanted, so I had 2 Pop-Tarts. Very healthy. Very #gamer. I also did try and eat some of the pancakes that my mother made, but my mother is still, she's still recovering from her stroke, and right now, the problem is that focusing is quite difficult, actually, so a lot of things that she would do by instinct or by habit are lost, and she has to actually focus, you know? So it emerges like in surprising ways, perhaps. You'd say like, oh, you have to really have to focus on that, and you kind of do. But like she noticed that the pancake batter was like clumpy, but they didn't actually do anything to fix it, right? So pancakes were edible, and I appreciate the attempt for sure. But I tried to eat 2 very lumpy, uneven pancakes, and then I had 2 Pop-Tarts. So I should probably eat something with vegetables. Probably. And we're getting into game 3. Neeb is showing a lot of weakness to Terran in these open cups, which I don't think he actually is this week. I don't think this is actually indicative of Neeb's skill in PvT. I do think that Neeb has always been a little shakier in this matchup, even when he gets to good positions. He'll make bigger mistakes than other Protoss players. So, well, let me get the introductions on. Top right, Clem, bottom left, Neeb. So even when Neeb gets to like a decent mid game, like he actually does a great job defending the early game. He's, you know, super smooth, similar to how a Showtime would defend some of this early game shenanigans. He gets to the mid game. He'll be more of the go-to example of a Protoss player being more fragile, I suppose, than other races sometimes, right? Where one big mistake is more often game ending. Their evacuation protocols are limited as Protoss players, right? So recall takes too long if you really do get surprised. Takes too long to actually be effective. Disruptors aren't always in play, and even if they are, they're not always shooting at the right time, kind of thing. Obviously, there's a lot of PvT examples where we don't have that common criticism of StarCraft 2 and Protoss in particular come into effect all that often. There's a lot of PvTs where it's super back and forth and everyone gets a second chance, third chance, fourth chance at living in the game. But Neeb, I feel like historically has had more examples of PvT where he gets to a decent position and then loses because he made a fairly big mistake and then he just dies. So what I guess is happening right now, these 2 weeks, is that it's all been condensed into the early game, where these mistakes don't even seem all that huge, but really they are. So, for instance, lacking a shield battery in the main. You know, 1 shield battery missing, is that really going to lose this pro gamer their PvT? Yeah, apparently. So that sucks, but it's not necessarily surprising in the idea that Neeb has lost abruptly in many PvTs. In PvZs, we saw that earlier. I feel like he's really, how to say, like, not intelligent's not the right word I'm thinking of, but he plays the tempo of the other matchups better. But for PvT, there's something missing, you know? There's something missing, the connection in his brain between, like, his strategy and his skill and the actual execution. And of course, all disclaimer that he is facing some of the best Terrans right now of the non-Korean market. So here Marine and Clem. So that always sucks, you know. And I would also say that occasionally he's getting unlucky. So this would be an example of that. Neeb is going for a Stargate opener. That's fantastic. He's also proxying a pylon. Huh. What's not fantastic is that I do actually think he had a probe here to scout for the starport and figured he would have seen the SCV because it's coming from the top right? But he didn't. So So trying to did he see the SCV? This would actually be a big brain play. Big brain play. If he scouted the SCV and I missed it, and so he knows it's a starport. Well, now he saw it's with an Oracle, so there you go. And that's why he's doing this response. Because one thing you do not have as a Terran player when you do this opener is a lot of attacking units. You have harassment units, you have those Hellions, but they can do one thing and one thing only, harass probes. They can't really engage in actual battles, and they're not very good defensively either. So, and of course, they literally do nothing against an Oracle. So, this is actually, I feel like, a very strong response. Clem is responding to what he's scouted very well as well. So he scouted the proxy Stargate, that's really important. Proxy Gateway, sorry. Gets a tank immediately, and is getting a bunker, but I don't think, why is he pushing out though? Hello? That didn't seem like the right call. Because I think his actual first problem is the gateway count. His second, almost equally as big a problem is the oracles, but there's only so much he can do. The SCVs have to be pulled to defend the tank, I think. Oh, they're gonna lose a tank. But the tank did its job. It got enough shots off. The SCVs helped with the adepts, kept them in place so that the Marines weren't being targeted, and the bunker did finish. That was really scary for the Terran player. That was really scary, but this didn't end up going so poorly. Actually, did the oracles attack the tank? Maybe they shouldn't have done that. Huh, that might have been the bigger mistake. I'd have to rewind that and rewatch it, but that was supposed to be a lot scarier for the Terran. For Clem to not only survive that, but also to have a decent number of his army units left over. Medevac, Marines, even his Hellions help out against the Adepts at the very least a little bit. I'm a bit surprised by that. And there's even a chance he could have saved that tank, and that would have been really brutal. He does lose 4 SCVs, but that is not what Neeb wanted. Because remember, Neeb didn't just go for 3 gateways, he actually made those units, right? If you go for 3 gateways before your 3rd Nexus, that's not exactly unorthodox. It's quite normal, actually. But if you then warp in once or twice, that has delayed your base. So that's the worry. It looks like Neeb got the 3rd base up, still relatively equal to regular games, I guess, non-proxy gateway games. And he is getting a decent number of probes, but only ahead by 8, where maybe he could have been ahead by 12 or more. Because remember, 8's about where the mules kick in, right? I don't know. I don't know if I like the way that it's gone for Neeb. I'll say this much, this is the closest game so far, by far. Neeb actually has a really strong shot to win this game. So Phoenix Charge coming in. Clem, has he picked up on this? Not necessarily. I feel like the way that this is open with a proxy gateway, I mean, I'm obviously biased because I literally see what Neeb is doing, but I still feel like this has kind of told you the way that the Protoss player's mindset is currently headed towards, which is aggression. Which, if it's aggression, it usually means charge lot. Whereas Phoenix Colossus would be a little more defensive. It does have its moments of aggression, but yeah. 7 probe just went down. I'm trying to figure out what the hell that was. Over here? Okay, something killed 7 probes. So what am I drop, I suppose? And Clem was also dealing with some stasis trap harassment, but nothing too big. I was wondering if they were zealots. That's why I was keen on getting back to Clem's base. They were not zealots, but now they are. And the 3rd base is going to be at least stalled out. Clem's forced to move back home. Neeb is going to actually give chase here. Now, Clem wants to be more defensively situated anyways. I don't think he actually wants to push in to Neeb right here, right now, where Neeb still has a bit of that power surge of mass charge lot Phoenix. But I think the timing for Neeb's army to be more powerful is actually quickly running. It's quickly running out of time. It's actually not that great as of right now, I say. The only thing I'm worried about is lack of widow mines for Clem. But the scan is going to reveal no gases on that 3rd base, which is still very much pointing towards dedication to charge lot Phoenix. There could be a 4th base. That's, you know, Nice would do this. Zest would do that. There could be a 4th base, but you'd still know that they're going into Phoenix charge lot for now. Their transition might be happening in 20 seconds. And actually, even without the 3rd base gases, we already have a Templar Archives and a Robotics Bay being thrown down. Can they actually afford that with 4 gases? I feel like no. Like, you know, 2 high Templars, 300 gas right there. And now the gas is being taken. Okay. Huh. Well, I don't want to focus too much on the macro side of things, because Neeb was just harassing the SCV line. 10 SCVs went down to the Phoenix. That's quite nice. And 5 of the Phoenix live, get recalled home, so not bad at all. But I do also feel like, okay, something went wrong. Because that's what I was feeling, because something went wrong. A robotics bay gets thrown down way sooner than I would have expected. Or alternatively, the gases got thrown down way later than I expected. And then he actually builds a 2nd robotics bay. So yeah, I'm going to assume that this robotics bay was actually the correct timing, if you will. And the first one was a misclick, or I don't know what else he would have thought, because he put down like both the Templar Archives and the Robotics Bay at the same time. But obviously something is going a little bit wrong here with Neeb, who is finally getting to play a decent macro game. It still is making some... Is he okay? Choices. Okay. Well, moving on from that, Neeb does now have a more typical setup with 6 gases. He's able to get into his Robotics Bay. He does have Templar Archives for 1 or 2 Archons, but I do believe 100% that getting the Templar Archives was not as important as getting into double Robo. Because what the Templar Archives does is give you Archons and Templar for Storms, maybe. All of those things. Very weak to EMPs. So you're further adding weakness to your Protoss army against EMPs. Colossus, they change the dynamic. They add something that's much better. And this engagement is going pretty well for Neeb, actually. He defends back at home, and he gets a bunch of charge lots into the 3rd base of Clem. Clem's not going to lose too many SCVs, and he's not going to lose his 3rd CC, but depots went down, 3rd CC has to be lifted, army entirely pulls back. Clem is the one that's on the ropes. Neeb is barreling down the middle of the map with charge lots. Colossus is effectively what he's got right now, but that might just be strong enough. The problem with this army is if the Colossus do not engage consistently. So it's very possible that Neeb thinks, all right, I got this guy in the ropes, let's go ahead and just kill him. And then the Zealots go one way, the Colossus attack the command center, and the charge lots get decimated, and the Colossus are left alone. So that's what you got to be worried about for the Protoss players' side of things. The only thing, really. Otherwise, you're pretty much good to stay here for a while. But then you got to worry about overstaying your welcome. When the Terran army also gets maxed out, when it gets a decent amount of Marauders, maybe they're building up those Viking counts, right? You might be overstaying your welcome. Right now, I think it's all good. 2 Ghosts even, miscontrolled by Clem. I guess they were positioning themselves for a backstab EMP, but then it just got found out. And Neeb might just win this game with the +2 attack timing here. Charge lots going off to the left side is another nuisance that Clem's going to have to deal with. So one way or another, Neeb is going to get damage done. EMPs hit the Phoenix and some of the Archons, but those Colossus don't have much actually killing them. Perhaps I spoke a little too soon. Now the Terran army is jumping on top of it. The Ghost gets destroyed on the front lines, and the Colossus will live. 6 SCVs go down. That's not that bad. That could have been way worse. But Clem's little bulking up of his army right there actually might cost him too much. He lost his tanky units. He lost the Ghosts and the Marauders in that last fight. Only left with a handful of Marines. That's exactly what the Colossus want to be up against. And of course, while this is going on, Clem just simply is losing out on the pacing of this game. His 4th base, very close to being canceled, and he needs that. Neeb's not on a 5th yet, but Neeb very well could be. Wood of Mines are going to pop off very effectively. Disruptor's not going to get a great shot, and there's nothing killing the Vikings right now, so that's a tad awkward for Neeb. Only 1 Phoenix is like, I guess I'll try. There you go. But there is Neeb's 5th base. I will say that this was late. He had enough money to build this 5th base, and I think he'd be in a perfect position if he had it, but not like he's behind now because of it. Clem did finish his 4th. Is finishing his 4th. Okay. And I think it'll live. Well, maybe not. Maybe not, actually. SCVs might have to come for the repair. Neeb has to be careful here. 1 Wood of Mine getting a beautiful shot, but then Disruptor also getting a decent shot. And why does he have to be careful? Because the concave was being made, but Clem just simply does not have enough units by the looks of things. He is pulling the SCVs to try and support right now, and actually he's going to have just barely enough. The SCVs coming in, the concave coming in, actually takes down the Protoss army, and once that buffer is gone, the Robo units will be taken out afterwards. Colossus and Disruptors both being killed, equalizing that engagement. 9 SCVs were killed, Ghosts were killed, Marauders were killed, I think even Medivacs were killed. Oh no, actually 7 Medivacs. No, that's not, that's actually perfectly fine. So really the biggest army loss, I suppose, for Clem was the Ghosts. But he even saves his Vikings, his Medivacs are very healthy with a lot of energy, and Neeb is the one that actually probably regrets that fight. Check the resources lost. Yeah, regrets it a little bit. Typical Protoss fashion, you do want to be winning the resource trade. But Clem now has 2-2. Neeb will still have better upgrades, as he had better upgrades for the first half of the fight, I want to say. some of those fights, maybe. But yeah, things equalize at some point. Clem wants to punish what is only a Stalker Disruptor army, and I think he's right about that. You gotta be a little careful, right? Like, you don't want to underestimate Stalkers, especially when they have good upgrades, so you don't want to actually chase if you only have, like, 6 Marauders and they have 12 Stalkers, right? Then they focus fire each one of them down. But with an EMP as well, Clem, probably right to try and chase. Can't chase too much, doesn't know what's actually reinforcing that Protoss army. Could be Colossus, could be 20 Zealots, who knows? So Clem pulls back, cleans up some Zealots, got a little Widowmine drop by the looks of things once again. So equalizing the worker kills. Medivacs being found out. It's a good thing Clem had saved those ones. Because now he's only at... Dude, he's still at 7? Jeez. I guess he went back into building Medivacs once he realized that Colossus were no longer in play. But oh no, he didn't actually save his command center. The SCV pull on it was too late. If he had saved the command center, I think all's fair. His army still has a lot of potential against what, again, is mostly a Blink Stalker Disruptor army. But without the third command center, this might just be all in for Clem. He's going to try and go for a good engagement. Splits pretty well against that one Disruptor. Is going to avoid this one. And we're talking about a very limited amount of Disruptor shots. I think 2 are available. One's going to be dodged right here. And the second one could be split against, but we have more reinforcing units. We're talking about a shield battery being active as well. Oh, the Disruptor didn't continue going. That was a little awkward there for Neeb. But Clem is down to just this army. He's got reinforcements coming in, but it's not going to be enough by the looks of things. He's up against better upgrades of his opponent, but the Stalkers, they're starting to melt. The Archons actually on the front line, buffering as they should. And hell, even those Vikings adding in a surprising amount of DPS, making this look closer than it ever had the right to be. Clem is finally forced to back off. But he did rebuild his third command center? No, he just replaced it. He picked up his main base, so that's still a problematic position for the Terran player. +3 is about to finish. Widowmine's trying to be saved. Neeb is on 5 bases going into Dark Templar. DT Blink's on the way. Clem is going to try and play out this game. 5th base, if you will, is on the way. But he's missing a 3rd command center, and hell, he might be missing a 2nd command center as well. Base trade might just have to happen, but it's base trade that Neeb is going to win. Clem is so late to actually going across the map. He got caught up killing a gateway. Now he's hoping that maybe the high ground will give him an advantage. The army supplies are closer than the overall supply, right? So there is that chance, but even missing the opportunity to get on that high ground, he's going to have about 1/4 of his army just not actually being supported. And now I think the opportunity is missed. Mass DTs come in. They do get obliterated by the EMPs, but so much of the Protoss army is left over, and Neeb not gonna be 3-0'd today. Not today. Finally got a Neeb win versus these pesky Terrans. Ooh, now we get the caster collect them all game. And we actually have a bit of a series. Game 4 is going to be on Glittering Ashes. Top right, Clem. Bottom left is Neeb. Clem not quite able to deal with the Colossus well enough.
Thank you for becoming a member.
Really was the inclusion of the Colossus that gave Clem a bit of trouble. He didn't have enough Marauders. He didn't add on Vikings until a bit later. And that is usually very much a decision made by the pros, too. Thank you, Finger of Death, for the tier 1 sub. So when you see plebs play and they have too many Marines, it's because they probably just typed something into the keyboard to produce. They didn't really think about it. You see they have too many Marauders, it's because they overvalue Marauders and think that they're just super safe. So they'll get like 20 Marauders against a bunch of carriers, something like that. It's a mistake, right? When pros do it, it's very much a decision, right? So more Marines than Marauders and vice versa. So last game, Clem actually, I would say, got kind of caught by the idea that Neeb was dedicating longer to charge than he actually was. So Neeb had that moment where I was a little confused about his gas timings, but funnily enough, by delaying his gas timings, he did, I think, throw off Clem's internal clock on when the transition was going to happen. So Clem was still producing mostly Marines. He hadn't actually gone into a lot of Viking production either until a little bit too late to deal with the two Colossus that ended up bullying him to kind of start the momentum in Neeb's favor. So it doesn't take much for a lot of us who watch too much StarCraft for our own good to think of games where Clem has more Marauders than he did. So instead of having 5 Marauders, he has 10. And then we watch him do wonders with a Concave or Focus Fire, something like that. He was also missing Marauder Slow, which I noticed but didn't actually get time to comment on, which also would have been more helpful for some of the engagements against the charge lots. Obviously, it's 20 charge lots and only 3 of them get slowed. How helpful is it really? But it is helpful, and it's a very cheap and fast upgrade too, so that was just simply a mistake from Clem. So a couple things were missing to actually combat the composition that he was up against, and by the time he kind of found his footing, it was already a bit too late. So I don't know if Neeb was going with that idea of trying to fake out his opponent with the delayed gases, but I think it actually did, intentional or not. It's just that again, if they're a bit later, I do expect a faster 4th Nexus, right? Like, it's usually the 2 choices, so 5th and 6th gases or 4th Nexus. Both, I suppose, if you think you can get away with it, but you know, one kind of supports the idea of massing gateway units, and the other one supports the idea of transitioning to higher tech units. This is the potential awkward moment of the bunker attack, which is that it's actually in range of the pylon, but with the shield battery actually done, it's not that big of a deal for Neeb to take care of this. It is lasting an awfully long time, and it costs Neeb an overcharge too, which could have been a chrono this early on in the game. So all in all, Clem probably not too sad about how that went down. We know that Clem can do wonders with his Reapers, so probably would have wanted to save one of them at the very least, but doesn't. And now Neeb has cleaned that up. He can focus a little bit more on actually dealing with the follow-up. And what is the follow-up? Well, a lot of the time it's been Hellions, so I'd be surprised if Neeb was surprised by the Hellions. He's probably hoping to find them come to the middle of the map. He does not. Hellions go over to the right side. And now they're going to wait. Once the Stalkers show themselves in the natural, the Hellions should go in. There's also an Oracle coming across the map, so Clem has to be careful about his natural defense. Probe checking around for a Woodamine. There go the Hellions. Okay, so the Oracle pulls back in time. If Clem had waited 2 more seconds, he probably kills 6 probes instead of 4, or maybe even 8. Second shot there would have been big. Clem just he has to pull his SCVs back to the high ground. He doesn't have, once again, a lot of attacking units. That's what started the game off last game, which was, kind of forgot how weird the opening was last game. Gonna try and trap one of these Stalkers. Gonna definitely kill one. Probably a second. Stalker. Yeah, probably a second. Yeah, so last game started off with that odd engagement where Clem's proxy starport didn't get to do anything, and then Neeb's proxy gateway didn't do as much as I was expecting it to. Kind of forgot that had happened. I still don't think it's what majorly contributed to the mid game. Obviously, it did contribute, but maybe it did. Maybe it actually threw off Clem's timings more than I gave it credit for. Regardless, into this game, we have another stall in the command center SCV production for Clem, but he's only behind by 7 workers. That's totally acceptable. Neeb's third base is done, and he's not chronoing his probes, actually. What is he chronoing? Nothing so far. All right, then. Phoenix. Okay, I didn't mean to point out mechanical problems, but it's a bit of a questionable chrono. I would have expected at least another chrono on the Nexus. He did prioritize gateway production, which you got to do at some point. You got to get those gateways actually going, since you can't chrono boost their production. Their building. The building. You can't chrono it. But yeah, it's a bit weird. So. Oh, that was a beautiful stasis trap. I feel like Neeb is throwing up his hands in front of Clem's face right now and is like, how about that, micro sucker? Clem's having trouble with the Phoenix in the main base too. Force the cool SCVs to repair a tank. It's lost mining time. When he's not repairing the tank, he's losing the SCVs. He loses the tank anyways. Ouch. And Clem's attack on the front lines of Neeb is delayed significantly. So, well, because of the stasis trap, it's also delayed because of the force fields. His tank hits nothing important. Absolutely 0 things. Charge is going to finish. +1 armor, not quite going to be done, but I think the charge is going to be good enough. Guardian Shield's going to be available too. Probably going to use the force fields though, especially if he loses that sentry. Yeah, there you go. And only half of those Marines end up escaping. They pull back to the tank, but the tank's not really the best thing against this composition. The Zealots are going for a wraparound. SCVs were pulled into this? Wow, Clem really had no hope with how the opener went. I guess he was right. He was right. He really was not doing anything. If the SCVs were there from the get-go, it's actually a reasonable engagement, but they came in awfully late. That felt like a, I guess I'm in this game, let me evaluate, just kidding, I'm dead, pull the SCVs. Got the move. So this game not finishing as fast as I thought it would. You guys can see the tiniest little bit of Apollo. You can see his little furry butt. I love that he uses it. And now we have a game 5. Very unexpected game 5. First 2 games were super one-sided for Clem. Third game was pretty good, actually. Fourth game was super one-sided for Neeb. Bottom left is Clem deciding that proxying worked out for him so well in game 1. He's gonna do it again. Bottom right, it is Neeb. I was very worried. Oh. I was very worried that Neeb is gonna have a repeat performance. Gets thrashed by a top-tier Terran player in the European Open Cup. Fortunately, not the case. I'm not necessarily cheering for Neeb. I like both of them, actually. Quite even, really. But I just would have expected Clem to win. I'm glad that Neeb had something to say about that. This is not the proxy you'd usually see, because it's hardly a proxy. Some Terran players do try to trick them and go up here, but that's not usually a fantastic idea because the Protoss player can scout the lack of barracks and say, oh, Terran players, of course they're going to proxy over here. And then, well, they could scout it, first of all. They also just block the wall, so it's not very useful. So Clem is going to get Neeb to, well, 100% Cybernetic core and 100% block here, if there is any other choice. That's about it. And then Clem's actual damage dealer will come with the factory. Which Neeb does his due diligence. Scouting is at home. It's always a chance. There's always a chance Terran players will proxy that as well. Barracks simply lifts up, goes home. That's the nice thing about not really proxying a barracks. You get faster to the barracks production. And the Reaper just doesn't even bother trying to catch Neeb off guard. I mean, it's what, 2 seconds closer? Well, you have to go around like this, so it's closer than 2 seconds. But still, it's not that much faster, and Neeb clearly knew what was going on. So Clem doesn't build a second Reaper, doesn't use the first Reaper for very much. That's what it is. And that means that Neeb has defended perfectly, because there wasn't much to defend. But there's always the chance that the Protoss over-defends. Well, maybe the Zealot you could accuse of over-defending. Because of the way things have played out, that Zealot's not nearly as useful. But I was thinking more on the lines of no unnecessary shield battery is what I was thinking of. The probe's gonna bait out the Widow Mine. Clem should not let that happen, though. We expect big things from Clem. And he fucked up. He done fucked up. That's supposed to kill a Zealot or a Stalker. Or just simply put, stop this from attacking at all. It's not the biggest of deals. It really isn't. But for someone who saved one Marine from a stasis trap, the expectations are high. Ooh, speaking of micro, though, Stalker. It's Champ. It's the Zealot's best friend right now. Kills the Reaper, which is glorious. Doesn't allow it to regen, doesn't allow it to get back in the main base, then even looks for some of these Marines. The medevac, though, is flying across the map. A little more important here. Medevac flies across the map, gonna get that little bit of scouting, and is gonna hopefully get some damage done too. It's gonna kill an Adept and 2 probes. And Neeb didn't even realize it was going on. He was 100% focusing on his attack on the front lines, so the Phoenix pulled back kind of late. Still, clean up the Widow Mines, easy peasy. Will not clear up the medevac. Clem didn't build a bunker. This seems like a potentially huge mistake. Nah, it's not that big of a deal. Never mind. SCV pull on top of the Stalker is pretty perfect. This ends up not being what Neeb was hoping for. Yeah. I think Neeb was hoping his Phoenix would get there faster? Right? Yeah, 100% he hoped. And then it was the Phoenix. Well. I also feel like Neeb was supposed to pull back his army, not let it get partially surrounded by those SCVs. It is what it is. Now Neeb is supply blocked and is about to lose another Phoenix. Oh no, the medevac's gonna give it the vision. Oh, he pulls back into it! Oh my god. I guess he was trying to get the medevac off his back is why he pulled back, but that almost Did not work out for Neeb, who still has a very weak Phoenix after already losing one, and if Roddy's casting, which he is, he's very disappointed. It's gonna be Phoenix Colossus. I don't even know if Neeb wanted to do this on Blackburn from the get-go. It does seem like it was probably his plan, but I feel like after an awkward start like this, you're almost obligated to. At least he kills the medevac. Marines are now in no man's land. They are actually just stuck until another medevac comes out. But it's definitely one of the more popular maps for what Neeb is doing. Again, Blackburn really encourages just headbutting each other more than it does encourage counterattacks, run-bys, surrounds, positioning, I suppose, in general. There are places to get good positioning, obviously. It just is a little more about one attack path being used and getting the best concave possible with that attack path. So, what I'm trying to say is the Colossus, it's, you know, biggest weakness, not really going to be able to respond to too many places at once. They're not really responding to too many places. The drop threat does exist, just a little less so on Blackburn. Yeah, this will be good enough. 2 Immortals not exactly doing a whole lot of damage to the Marines, but they're definitely tanky enough that they support the round of Warpins, or the Colossus pops out, and Clem would be overstaying his welcome. Specifically when this Colossus pops out, he's gonna have to skedaddle. And the skedaddle is had. So many Marines, the Colossus is gonna burn through those, as long as it's in any way, shape, or form protected. Medevacs do load up, but to evacuate. So again, the threat of a drop is it's possible on Blackburn, it's just unlikely to work. So that's the Colossus being a little more effective here. And then the concaves really aren't that bad on these maps, I suppose. This is potential outpositioning. Potential, though. Doesn't actually kill the Nexus. Gets a Wood of Mine pop-off on everything. Colossus takes huge damage. Immortals get their shields popped, and Clem was probably very tempted to take that fight. Can't do so. Not quite. Now, Clem's on 3 bases, properly protecting them against further Phoenix harassment. The Phoenix currently not focusing on going across the map. They're gonna want to make sure that there's no drop in the main base. Until Neeb has a better unit count that can split, the Phoenix need to stop any medevac drops. I do love this. I feel like I've seen way too many TvPs where a Terran player drops in the main with just enough to kill the units if a shield battery wasn't there. So I'm really happy to see the shield battery. And this is probably going to be good enough if need be to warp in as you see the medevacs come in, right? So we are talking about Neeb kind of, I guess, climbing over that hill of having enough units to spread around. Seems like he's gotten there. Clem is building up to a better mid-game army. Ghost, Vikings, upgrades. And Neeb maybe going to be adding in second Robo. Okay. I was wondering if a Templar Archives would be thrown down for some additional Archons, for some Archons at all, I guess, but no. Not yet, anyways. And again, going back to my previous talk on the 3rd game, was it? The 3rd game? It doesn't make a lot of sense to not even bother going for that too quickly, because they're basically redundant if you're facing someone who already has EMPs. I don't know if redundant's the right word. They're not that useful. Someone who's already going EMPs. So now a very typical PvT is at hand. Clem does have a 30-ish army supply lead, looking to take advantage of it. Upgrades are going to be favorable for Clem as well, since Neeb was so delayed on his. Decent 3rd base timing, decent Colossus count, something had to give. I guess it was the F-Forge upgrades. And that 4th base, I think, is going to have to be canceled. That sucks. 99% and has to be canceled. It's a big grab for Clem. Neeb puts it down probably close to immediately. I think he just warped in right there, but close to immediately? Close? Oh, he doesn't take it there. There we go. Besides, the gold base is not worth it with the current situation, which is him still on his heels, I suppose. He's still on the back foot. He is the one that's offending. He doesn't have any options, really, to counterattack. If he did warp in charge lots, they could go across the map. This avenue is open. They usually don't get too much done again on Blackburn. It's a little just less likely that run-bys are going to kill you. So better off waiting for, I think, the BTs. And it's not like Neeb really can afford to just willy-nilly send 10 zealots. Enough zealots to actually do something across the map. He's still a bit concerned about the size of his forces and the location of them as well. Something scouted the bottom. Maybe a probe, maybe a zealot. Either way, Neeb got some good scouting because he needs to know how to split his army. Right now, the Vikings find the Colossus mostly under-defended. Try and kill it, but thank God for shield battery overcharge. Am I right, fellas? Colossus on the top side. The same cannot be said. And just as easy as that, Clem takes game 5. Alright. I was expecting a bit more. But I guess Neeb did not have the units to take at 4th base. I guess they didn't. GG, well played. Neeb will lose another final.